Hi everyone. As Mikael mentioned during the keynote, we've entered a whole new world where the economics of building and shipping software has fundamentally changed. What used to take weeks of development now takes really days, if not hours. And what we've been seeing is that in that new world, though, speed is no longer the main issue and the main bottleneck, but clarity is. When we talk about clarity, it's really the clarity of knowing confidently what you should be focusing on next. It is the clarity of knowing what signals to listen to and trust, or the clarity of knowing when and how to use customer insights when making decisions. So over the past few months, as Mikael mentioned, we've been actually engaging in an exciting development of our agentic infrastructure, where the intention is really to help teams not only to go faster, but more importantly, helping teams see more clearly as everything is accelerating. So for this session, we thought we could actually have a deep dive into the world of digital products and be able to better understand how some teams like Zepz are successfully scaling clarity across complex organizations. So I'm joined by Kevin Griffin, who is head of UX and design at Zepz. You've been experimenting a lot in how to scale clarity in a global, remote-first, multi-brand product organization. And you also have been an early adopter of our new agentic capabilities. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from North Carolina.
You're welcome, thank you.
Very glad you actually missed out on the blizzard.
I live in the south of the US, so we were a little not as impacted there, so definitely made it across the ocean. So I'm Kevin. Thanks for the intro there, Vincent. I've been at Zepz for about 3 years, as my title says, head of UX and design. Doesn't cover everything. I also own our customer insights and run our voice of the customer program, so wear a lot of hats. If you don't know Zepz, which you probably don't, it is our corporate brand identity. We actually have 2 products across the globe. 2 apps, and we specialize and offer international money services and transfers and digital financial services to primarily migrants, immigrants around the world. So very, very crucial experiences, especially for customers who have to depend on us to support their family, friends, businesses back home, and maybe their originating country.
So these 2 brands result from the merger of the brands before?
Yep, so yeah, there are 2 independent companies, 2 brands that we came about, merged under Zepz entity. Being in the UK, you might know World Remit, which is the purple one on the right. That one's a little bit of a bigger one in the UK.
And if I understand correctly, so you went through a pretty big reorganization where initially your product teams were looking after expenses within brands, very brand-centric, and you over time moved into a new model where product teams are owning expenses end-to-end across brands. Can you tell us a bit more about why did it happen, and actually did that unlock additional clarity for the teams?
Yeah. So when the companies or the 2 products came, we did not disturb the organization too much. We had teams, engineering teams, product teams, marketing teams focused on the singular brand to excel on it. And about a year and a half ago, we actually moved to a non-branded model where now teams are around primarily core experiences across both journeys. Since both products kind of are very similar, they have a lot of the same core journeys. And we really wanted to do that. I mean, a big theme of this is efficiency. We really wanted to kind of make sure the teams were efficient and also had the domain knowledge within certain experiences to optimize across both brands. What's nice about having two brands under one house is it's an easy A/B tool where you can kind of see if one experience is performing better on one, how could we actually do that on the other one? So we wanted that synergy to happen within the teams, quicker, faster, more efficiently. So that's why we moved to that model.
Thank you. Expensive A/B test. It's pretty expensive, right? But yeah, no, I think you mentioned so that you are in you are heading design.
Yes.
And you also are owning customer insights.
Yes.
So you don't have a separate user research and customer insights team
We do not. We're a small team, so we do not have dedicated resources for customer insights and research. So yeah, the responsibility falls on my shoulders and my team's shoulders, which we really want to then push that on to everyone, every stakeholder in the company's shoulders. Because of the reliance we definitely had primarily, it kind of made sense for us to kind of own it. But one of my jobs is to have everyone be or have it be impacting to them. So how do we get it into everyone's hands, regardless of what your title is?
Talking about PMs, in I guess product managers.
Yep, one of those
how
included.
do they access it? Are they self-serving? Are they relying on you and your team to find these insights?
Yeah, so one of our biggest pain points is the self-serving. Obviously, I would love more self-service and more people to kind of come to those conclusions, find those insights themselves. But right now we are a little bit of a bottleneck, so we are the kind of biggest bell ringers of the news of what we're finding through Chattermill and the customer insights. So we do kind of deliver the news to the teams for them to kind of consume, and they have the information to kind of say, okay, yeah, that's a new insight, we'll take action on it, or yeah, we're hearing that there's something in the roadmap that we might have ready for it too. So they can kind of distill it away, but definitely want them to kind of also be able to get into the platform as well and kind of see those insights themselves. We're human, myself and my team, so we take vacations, we have sick days, so we need to make sure other people can kind of like service if they need to without depending on us.
Hopefully the new agentic work that we're currently doing, that you are helping us with, will definitely be helping on the dissemination aspect. Talking about roadmaps, what I find actually super interesting is that you really designed a whole system around the usage of customer insight throughout different decisions in the product life cycles. Can you share the overall framework with everybody?
Yeah, so this is all kind of under our Voice of the Customer program. Insights are kind of at very many levels throughout our organization. These are kind of examples of how we kind of at every level use customer insights. So the first one on the left, we do a quarterly analysis where we look at all the customer insights from the previous quarter, and this actually coincides and is the kickoff of our next quarter roadmap planning. So every domain puts together their roadmap of what they're going to achieve within the next quarter. We're actively right now planning for Q2, and so I'm actually trying to put together a deck for the insights for that. So they use that to be like, what did we hear last quarter? To say, what were the biggest insights? Are they kind of following trends? Is there anything new? To make sure we have alignment to what we're prioritizing in that quarter to solve the pain points that we're kind of hearing. So, that noise that we're hearing from customers doesn't go unheard and unacted on. The next is kind of the next level down, or we do weekly metric reviews within our domains. So again, our domains are focused on core experiences across our platform. So we have a domain focused on our sign-up journey to really optimize that. They do weekly domain reviews, and they have the other performance metrics they run through with stakeholders. Customer insights, net sentiment is one of those metrics that we will run through and actually give a little bit of a report on. So it's up there with all the other, what your typical kind of performance metrics you see, like conversion, activations, customer sentiment is right there in line with them. And then at the very bottom, we use Chattermill. We use it as almost like a triage system as well. We have all the channels that we hear customer feedback from go into Chattermill. I'm sure similar to how you guys use it if you do. But we use it to also kind of triage. This was just an example where we just started seeing out of nowhere one week a pop-up in issues of customers just having issues logging in or their app wouldn't load. And after kind of diving into specifically that and seeing that they're all in the same app version, we realized it was actually a buggy release. And so we rolled it back, and then we tracked it the next week, saw that there wasn't any more of that, fortunately, and so we used it to kind of just almost be a kind of a triage system for us.
Super complete. On the quarterly side, what evidence do you need usually when you are pitching or suggesting for a project to be prioritized?
When we do the quarterly analysis? It's not really necessarily pitching. It's just to kind of make sure that the stakeholders, the product teams that are going through their huge backlogs and everything has kind of a importance to it. It's really just to make sure that they have the right data to say, hey, this is impacting the customer. We do customer impact scores to our projects, and so this is a big driver of that. So it's really just to make sure that they have that data in hands. So when they're kind of comparing apples for apples or they're horse trading, they can kind of see, oh, this one actually might be something because we saw last quarter, one of our biggest issues was like funds not received. So customers who send money, those funds don't make it to their family, who they're sending to. One of our biggest pain points, and so we want to make sure the teams are prioritizing projects and work towards how is that going to help that pain point and that sentiment.
That's cool. You mentioned the triage as well. So nothing goes according to plan. There's always been unplanned stuff coming up. You mentioned the example of that issue where there is a version number right now that actually is leading to something. Do you have any other examples where I'm curious if you have more like a software feedback cluster coming up, how do you make space for it? Do you make space for it, or is it more like a candidate for the next quarter?
Yeah, we definitely, again, want to have our finger on the pulse to see if there's anything that new comes up. The weekly reviews are kind of one of those like catch-all places to kind of say, hey, this was a new observation or insight we heard. One of the things that we also kind of stay closely to is price effectiveness. Pricing, the way the exchange rate is and the fees we charge is it's a really big driver whether you're going to use our platform or not. And so we want to make sure that are we effectively priced, especially because it is a very competitive industry. So we don't want to give users them to go off to one of our competitors. And so we track it on a quarter by quarter level. So if you're sending from the US to Philippines, which is a big market for us, if we see all of a sudden we got a spike in customer sentiment saying, hey, your rates are just too high, that's probably because our pricing team they're moving it so constantly. And so they might have just hit a threshold that they just went too above, and all of a sudden now we're hearing a bunch of issues and complaints.
When you work with PMs, I'm sure they are all overwhelmed with data, and can be at times pretty difficult to get through and actually get your projects listened to and acted on. Do you have any experience, or do you have any ideas on what makes a insight really impossible for product teams to ignore?
Yeah, I mean, again, people are kind of human, and so they might prioritize what is important to them, but we want to make sure people have a sense of neutrality when they're looking at insights. What might be important, not important for you, might be important for another team. I would say volume is definitely the biggest thing we look at. So just how voluminous is it, the feedback we're hearing. But we also don't, as we heard earlier, there is definitely a silent customer. And so, what is going unsaid? And so, if there is kind of a new insight that pops up, that's something else that we would want to look at, monitor, and say, is this a fluke? Is this something that is starting of a trend? Is it a representation of a silent population? So those are kind of the two big, I would say, areas of hey, how big volume-wise is this insight? And then was this something we just haven't heard before? We might just want to kind of bookmark that.
Volume, quant data, I hear it. What's the place from user quotes, verbatims, or any anecdotes that you will see in the data?
Yeah, so anytime we do present, and I think you'll probably see it in most of these, anytime we do present data, whether it's the quarterly analysis, the weekly review, myself and my team always will kind of couple it with a verbatim that is a good representation of that issue. I think we really want to make sure that stakeholders hear it from the words that the customer is using in their voice. Just give it, again, more humanness to it. And so, we just don't want it to be numbers. So we do always associate verbatims and anecdotes with any of the data we show, just to have that kind of close representation to our customers.
You got a very well-thought system. Is there any challenges that are remaining, or anything that you are planning to address next?
I mean, the self-service, for sure, as I said. We want to make sure, again, the data is accessible for anyone who needs to use it. Everyone in the company can be impacted by our customer insights and can affect it. Not just the product teams, like I said. We have operations teams, we have pricing teams. Everything affects the customer, and so we want to make sure that if you're doing something within our product, making a change, whether that has a positive or negative impact too. So we want to make sure, again, that people can kind of go in and see it. And so it's definitely one of our biggest pain points, just, you know, getting in and seeing it and understanding it quickly, just so then it's like, okay, I can take action of what the action I can do.
If we change gear, in terms of agent as a whole, in the wake of all of the AI and agents, and we discussed this before, what kind of innovations have you been looking at to rethink the way you guys work? And I think I've got one screenshot here.
Yeah, so we're kind of in a discovery zone at our company of like how, again, I'm sure similar to everyone's companies here, of just like how can AI kind of help our efficiencies within our teams? We're not doing anything on the customer side quite yet, but internally, how can we make efficient? So just as an example, within my team owning the UX of the products, we wanted to kind of have at least a way to kind of get quick feedback or quick check-ins that, especially because we are a remote first company, so we're not in the rooms together. We're working in our offices at home, and so we don't have that kind of like easy pair of eyes or hey, can you just take a look at this and give me some feedback? So we wanted to kind of have a quick way, and so we're a Gemini house, and so we built kind of a UX auditor to kind of say, hey, if you just need kind of quick feedback on a new design you're creating, or say a product manager who owns the sign-up experience just wants to kind of get a quick analysis on the current experience, we built this UX auditor to kind of give us that. And so what it does is it'll kind of look at the screenshot and kind of give us then kind of a breakdown across a bunch of different factors. So I don't know if you can see that, but like we pipe in internal product principles of ours. We have psychological principles, accessibility standards, best practices in the industry, what are competitors doing, and then also understanding a little bit of our customer and their kind of persona. All of that goes in, it spits out kind of an analysis to give us or give the person who's using it a little bit of just a check-in. How is it performing against these, and give us also feedback. It isn't something to replace or kind of lessen the amount of work we're spending on the design, but it kind of rather allows us to spend the finite time that we usually have, rather than getting this to good, to really take it to great. So that's really where we're spending more of the time, is kind of getting it to that higher threshold of quality versus kind of getting it to that first bar. So yeah, it's just kind of like an easy tool that we use to kind of just give us that quick check-in.
How difficult was it to build?
Sorry?
How difficult was it to build?
I mean, we just kind of built it on Gemini, so it's kind of a bot in a way. So we just pipe in all the data that we have and all the other documents that live out there. And we just gave it all of the documents and all of that content in there. And so it wasn't really difficult to build. Really, I think anyone could do it in kind of an hour's time if you have the content already just floating out there.
That's super cool. So it's, I think, also a good transition to have the quick recap of actually what Mikkel was mentioning during the keynote, which was this ongoing development there that you are helping us with, where we are currently looking into adding 4 concepts. The first concept is the concept of a view, which allows, in the case of product teams, to have access to like a more focused set of information that removes the noise. Within these views, we are able to find insights that actually are avoiding the risk of blind spots and being able to surface things that people might not be thinking of, or simply like automating workflows. All of that being able to trigger some explorations that that will be leading to some upgrades to Ask Lara, which will be like more powerful with follow-up inquiries. I know everything will be exposed through a MCP server that Mikkel mentioned. And I believe that you were excited about the MCP as well.
Very excited.
And the use case being able to actually embed the MCP from within your UX editor.
Yeah, I mean, to embed the MCP or connect it, all of our Chattermill insights via the MCP, like into that, even just that UX auditor, I think would be fantastic, because then, right, like we throw in a screenshot and be like, oh yeah, this could solve a problem you're querying in your insights right now. I think that would just kind of give us more closer customer data that like we don't have to worry about feeding in. It's already existing on the platform. So yeah, no, when I heard you guys say it, I was like, yes, I want it tomorrow.
We are working hard on this. As we are gearing towards the alpha release of views and proactive insights, do you have any recommendations? We have product managers and designers at the back of the room that are eager to maybe hear your guidance and maybe like, some insight into what you think might change in your team on the back of that release.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just getting to the root causes much faster. Like I said, I think we have very finite amount of time. So it's really where are we spending that time? We want to make sure, and it is that kind of extra quality, getting it to that level that our competitors don't have. That's going to surprise our customers. It's going to really make their experience great. And so it's spending more time on there rather than kind of spending the time even just identifying like, is this even a problem worth solving, or just getting it to that kind of first good base level. We want to get it to that great level.
Thank you so much for being a fantastic design partner. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
We have some time for a few questions from the audience.
Question.
Thank you. So given that you're a small team working at pace, I'm interested to understand the balance that you've got set up between the AI and agentic tools and the more manual processes. Because obviously there's things like you may end up with the tools missing the stuff that customers haven't written, like Abdul mentioned about the silent customer at the beginning of the session, or your UX auditor might end up homogenizing your experiences with competitors like Rory mentioned later on. So I'm interested to understand the balance that you've got in the way of working.
Yeah, and I got louder. No, it's a great question for sure. It's like you don't want to give everything into these agents. We still need to kind of be the last line of checks and balances for sure. And so anything that we do kind of the auditor spits out, or the views that Chattermill shows, like still goes through the eyes of our experts. It still goes through the eyes of us. We do still design reviews. Like we're still kind of the gatekeepers to make sure that that quality is high. So, but it is a balance. I think it is kind of like where we don't want it to kind of like control and decide everything. It's just getting to those kind of decisions faster, so then we can kind of say yay or nay.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions for Kevin or Vincent? No? Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, guys.